Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ashley Tusignot, Senior Product Manager for Secure 9000. Thank you for joining our Software House webinar series. We're very excited today. We have the Lynx team here for their Lynx Network Duress and Emergency Notification Systems integration into Secure. I'm joined today with Brian Kordoff, Director of North American Sales, Tim Lee, VP of Sales for Microtechnology, Kevin Petty, VP, and Jim Stankovich, our Business Development Manager for the Healthcare Security vertical. So just so everyone is aware, this is a recorded webinar. So if you have questions, please enter them into the question box and we will leave time for a Q&A at the end. And with that, Brian, I'm going to pass things over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. First off, I just don't want to take up too much time, but wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Also wanted to thank the Lynx team for preparing this presentation. We're real happy to work with them. They've been a great partner of our team for many years now. We want to continue that partnership, and I know in the next over the next, say, 45 to 50 minutes, they're going to be showing you guys a lot of different technology that they've come out with, and also kind of talking about where we go. And as Ashley stated, we have Jim on the line as well from our healthcare vertical specialist team. To that point, though, we do have a lot of Lynx integration in the hospitals and education, but again, across the broader spectrum, this system is being used by many different verticals, many different end users. So, and one thing that I love about it is I never get a complaint after the system's in. So really hats off to the team for doing us, like I said, a great partner. And now I'll let the Lynx team kick it off next. Thank you, guys.
Ideal. Well, thank you very much, Brian, for inviting us today, and Ashley, and thank you all for attending. The Lynx system, as Brian touched upon, we've been integrated with Secure 9000 since 2013. However, the Lynx system itself has been around since 2004. Ultimately, what the Lynx system gives you is a solution to address the everyday issues that unfortunately organizations are having to deal with, whether it's disgruntled employees, disgruntled individuals coming into the facility where we might need to add duress capability. It adds the ability to communicate to all employees, but also possibly to visitors or other people that might be inside or near one of your clients' facilities. And then lastly, and an area we'll be focusing in on a lot, is that ability to automate the communication between events in Secure and the Lynx output devices, as well as the ability to utilize Lynx as an input to create events in Secure. And as you'll see today, Lynx does a lot of different things. And I think the main takeaway today needs to be, from your client standpoint, you can take the little chunks of Lynx and add it to Secure, or add it as a standalone solution alongside Secure. It is not an all or nothing solution. So we'll be talking about a lot of different capabilities today. For some, it may be a bit overwhelming as far as everything it can do, but the main thing is you can peel Lynx back and just take the small segments of the system as and where they're needed. Now, Lynx is actually developed by Microtechnology Services, who are based in Richardson, Texas. That's who Kevin, Mo, and I work for. And Microtechnology Services is a time and materials engineering company. It's been around since 1990, a bunch of engineers developing technologies and products for other companies. So, you know, when we look at Lynx, it's not a conglomeration of other people's technologies thrown together to look like a solution. It's truly an integrated solution. And the other part that's so key about this is all of the software is developed in Richardson, Texas. all of the hardware appliances, anything that connects to the network is manufactured and designed in Richardson, Texas. And as Brian touched upon earlier, our technical support that's there to assist both you as an integrator and your clients is based in Richardson, Texas. So every aspect of the system we manage in-house. Nothing is made abroad. Nothing is some other company's interface made to look like ours. However, we do have a number of integrations that are true integrations with other technologies we'll be talking about later. And this question does come up quite a lot. You know, where's microtechnology based? Where do you make your equipment? And the fact that we can proudly say it's manufactured in Richardson, Texas, I think is so key, especially when we start looking at so many markets where that has become a major concern or something that's very important to those organizations. So environments like the VA medical centers we're in 120 VA medical centers, they wouldn't be putting Lynx in those facilities if it wasn't manufactured and developed here in America. I think I'm the only part of microtechnology that's not being made in America, but that's a whole other issue. So one thing I wanted to talk about today, not about the fact that we're open as a company, obviously we're all open as companies, but is how can we look at the present climate we're in and adapt Lynx to solve so many of these new issues that are coming up today that we may not have worried about back in December. But ultimately, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that when we look at so many of the issues and concerns, the workflow in facilities, how many people are in the buildings, are people grouping together, all of the different aspects of concerns organizations have about coming back into the workplace, visitors in the workplace, all those types of things. So many of those things can already be configured within Secure. How much access there is to a building, changes in access to buildings, all of those things can already be configured by you as integrators so that as we look at the new normal, we're able to adapt the solution that's already in place to solve those day-to-day issues that are now going to be coming up. Where Lynx fits into that, however, is possibly the communication of that information. The ability to take that event in Secure, that there's too many people in an area, or somebody's trying to access an entry point that they shouldn't be into my building. I want everybody to come through this entrance now because we're able to monitor who is coming in our building. And if that door's been propped open, for instance, we need people responding and making sure that it's closed immediately. So that ability to get it over radios or to communicate through speakers to tell people to do something. Those people over there who are grouped together need to disperse, or any number of those other types of day-to-day issues that are going to come up where now Lynx can be the communication of that information we've got within Secure. Flip it all around, Lynx can also be the ability to add duress alarms anywhere throughout an organization. And as I think we can all imagine, unfortunately, whether it's in human resources, whether it's employees working in a city or county building where usually there were lots of employees around them, but now because we've reduced the number of people in the building, suddenly now I feel very isolated. I'm working in an environment where I don't feel as comfortable as I used to, or maybe I'm in a temporary building where we need a duress alarm. The part of Lynx that enables us to add duress alarms, integrate them quickly, reliably into Secure, a huge feature. And the last part that I learned last week that I felt was very valid, and we'll be talking about this later, is the ability to use the Lynx icons to initiate different levels of lockdown more efficiently and quickly within Secure, enabling people to have a very quick and easy method of raising or lowering the lockdown levels or access into buildings, whether it's an individual building or a 40-building campus, that I need to be able to manage any one of those very, very efficiently and quickly. Now, as we look at the Lynx system, for the last 15 years, up until last year, the Lynx system was an on-premises solution. It would be loaded in a virtual environment, and we would then utilize the different functionalities of the system. And the system itself really lent itself more so to large deployments, especially when we're involving IT and others. And that solution will continue to be a very, very necessary part of the Lynx solution. However, one of the exciting things that happened last year is that we introduced a software as a service solution. So now we have the ability to have a much more scalable solution for entities that might need just a little bit of Lynx. We have a whole variety, as you'll see in a moment, of different physical input and output options. And ultimately, as I mentioned a moment ago, the Lynx system is totally modular. So we're able to utilize the system with just the aspects that your client needs today. And one major feature of that, for some, might be merely the ability, when there's some type of an emergency, to be able to automate that communication to all staff. I have a campus, a corporate campus with 4,000 employees spread out throughout 6 different buildings. And the ability to override all of those computers at a moment's notice, alerting my staff to take some form of action, even if they're not logged onto the computer, might be all clients looking for. So it's a huge, huge feature that can be so easily added to any event in Secure that we can automate communication to all those computer screens and impactfully get everyone's attention. Let's face it, we might already be sending text messages and emails out to everybody, but in certain environments, like a call center, for instance, or many other areas, even in healthcare, where we might be discouraged from being on our personal phone during work hours, maybe that text message isn't going to be as impactful getting people's attention as we need it to be because of the nature of the issue. Or that ability to add, as we'll be talking about later, a Duress function that simply turns a computer keyboard into a Duress alarm. So as you look at this big oval diagram, you'll see all sorts of things going on. So as you can imagine, looking at this, you go, oh my gosh, my client doesn't need all of this. The nice part about the Lynx system is there's a software element to it, and there's a hardware element to it. It's basically a software and hardware I/O system. The important part about that, however, is everything is encrypted, everything is supervised, and as far as any of the inputs, any of them can be tested, and we'll have logs that everything's tested. We'll have logs if anything were disconnected or a wire got cut. It's truly an integrated solution. It's not, as unfortunately some of the solutions that are made to look like Lynx might be 4 or 5 solutions combined together to look like a single solution. So as we look at this diagram, even though we've got a huge amount of different capabilities, you're able, as an integrator, to simply pick the portions of the system that meet your client's needs today, but very easily expand the system to address other issues in the future. So initially, it might just be that communication out to the desktop, a very, very easy addition. Maybe we add that as the hosted solution. You could literally have that deployed tomorrow. But ultimately, phase 2 might be, I need to now add some physical input or output capability. Maybe now I want to tie into my radio system or my PA system. Those options can simply be added initially or at a later date very, very easily, because everything is part of one single solution. One of the things I like to bring up about Lynx, and Brian touched upon it earlier, is the fact that we as a company not only develop the Lynx solution, we support it. So we're here to help you as the integrator deploy the Lynx software in that virtual environment. We're there to assist you in any way that we can on not only training, but any type of implementation of supervision and hardware and capabilities. But we're also there to assist your clients, your end users, who may want to work directly with us from an IT level of deploying that software on their virtual server or distributing the software out to those 4,000 or 5,000 computers. So when we look at the Lynx solution, the technical support there in Richardson is what I get compliments about every single day. Clients reach out to me and say, Tim, your tech support is amazing. Tim, we had a question about this and tech support answered it. So that part of Lynx, I think, is something that, for me, being in the sales side of things, has always been something not only that I'm very proud of, but I think is so key with any type of technology that we want to add. So as we look at the Lynx system, obviously there's lots and lots of parts and pieces to it, but the actual networking aspect of it are very, very simple. What I would suggest for those of you that do like to dig a little bit deeper technically, or for those integrators that really want to get a better understanding of how Lynx works in the background, I'd suggest possibly setting up a webinar that's a more technical webinar. And that can be done if you reach out to your Software House area sales manager, and we can set up some time to really dig a little bit deeper and show you how powerful the integration is with Secure, but also you know, how robust the Lynx software is. And again, here's just another diagram showing all those different input and output capabilities and the simplicity when we start looking at how to design a system, that it's basically just an I/O system that has a huge amount of intelligence. Now, when we look at the software, this is where, again, for a large number of our clients, initially, it's just a software-based solution. I need to put a Duress function on every single one of my computers, and I need to be able to notify every one of my computers. Integrate it with Secure, and now I can automate that communication to groups or all computer screens. Integrate it with Secure so those events from the keyboard Duress function can create an event in Secure. Utilize the icons possibly for certain key personnel. But ultimately, as we look at the Lynx system, one of the key parts is that supervision. These little green icons on the desktop are actually indicating to the employee that everything is connected and operational. So at all times, the employee is aware that everything is operational as designed, but also whoever's administering the system is aware if for some reason something were to go offline. And all of that information obviously is stored in the log files, but the software is very, very powerful, and it can be very easily distributed by the IT department to all computers, but we can distribute that unified client in a dormant mode so that as and when we need to turn on any of the functionalities, we have the ability to do it at a moment's notice. So I get a call on Monday morning about a domestic concern in one of my buildings. Mary came to work and there's an issue she's been having. We can literally turn on that keyboard functionality this morning. No one physically had to touch her computer. We're able to remote in, turn on the capability, and now Mary has that ability to get assistance from security at a moment's notice. So again, we have the on-premises solution that we assist in configuring. Usually it's a virtual server. There are entities that still put physical servers out there, but that's obviously a decision for your client. The hosted solution opens up a whole new way of offering the Lynx solution. We have a hosted solution that can be maintained by you as the integrator or by the end user, but we even have a managed solution now where Lynx, our Lynx tech support, will actually configure everything for the client. And as I mentioned earlier, the nice part about the hosted solution is that because it's a software as a service, it's simply a yearly fee. And the cost of that yearly fee is so low, relatively speaking, that instead of it being a capital purchase, possibly now for your client, it's an operational expense. So now suddenly we're able to add the Lynx capability for the duress or the communication. And rather than looking for capital funds or looking for grants, which obviously in the next few months and years may be less available, now with the hosted solution, with the software as a service, it's a solution that could be not only deployed very quickly because it requires very little IT involvement, but also from a cost standpoint, being a yearly fee, it's much more cost effective to get the system deployed. The other part I think is very nice is that, let's face it, with the whole COVID issue, the fact is if one of your clients said, I just need this for the next 12 months till everything gets back to normal, well, they can buy the service for a year. It's not something that they're in a long-term contract for. So the hosted aspect of Lynx really, for me personally, has brought up so many additional benefits that we're able to offer. One of the other areas that the hosted, I think, is going to just really change the marketplace for us is the fact that with the hosted solution, we're not limited by networks. So if I've got employees who are working from home or from Starbucks, and I have the software loaded on their computer, if I need to send out an emergency notification to them, I'm able to do so even though they're not actually on our network. Or maybe I'm a county who also has city or state employees working in the buildings. I'm no longer restricted by my networks on those other entities being notified or being able to utilize the duress functionality. Or as we've done before, whereas it's a little bit more difficult with the on-premises, maybe if that specific alert came in from the visitor management system, or that specific alert came in from the lockdown button in the school, now not only could that information be shared within the organization, but maybe that information is now being shared with local law enforcement with live video, simply using our client in the dispatch at the 911 center. So this is probably one of the major features of the Lynx system that really changed the game for us as a company. Back in 2005, the VA in Birmingham, Alabama reached out to us and said, hey, we need to replace our duress system. And it looks like your solution solves our problem much more cost effectively, and also gives us the ability to use it on a much broader scale. And I think at the time they had to replace about 500 duress alarms. Now they're probably about 2,000 spread out throughout all of their CBOX and other remote locations. But ultimately, what they were able to do was enable anywhere there was a computer to have a silent duress alarm. And that changed the game for us from the standpoint of large deployments of the Lynx software in organizations that were having to address the issue not only of individuals coming into the facility that might be confrontational, but also issues that may happen between co-workers and many other concerns that people have. So with the keyboard function, the software simply gets pushed out to the computers. We the administrator designates a key combination such as F9, F11. If they push just those two keys, F9, F11, it will send out an instant notification to Secure as an event, to Lynx as a pop-up alert, to the radios possibly, and other devices. But the important thing here is, as long as it's a Windows-based computer, it will work when the computer's logged on, logged off, or locked. So as long as the computer's powered on, we're able to send out that silent alert. Now, what's also built into it that's so critical, as you can imagine, because it's a duress alarm, is a test feature. And it's that test feature that actually prompts the employee on a monthly basis to functionally test their alarm. So now on a monthly basis, I'm actually pushing my F9, F11 key in a very controlled manner, which is creating a report for the system administrator that Tim Lee tested his alarm at 1:28 p.m. Eastern Time on May the 14th, and it worked correctly. But what it also does is it becomes a really, really powerful training tool for the employee to know that they have the system and how to use it. And I think as you'll see in this next video, you'll see the benefit there. You'll see how calm this lady pushes the F9, F11 when somebody's becoming very angry at her, because she's been using this in a test mode. See how calm she is.
This is totally unacceptable, and I'm not Duress alarm test. Secure, you respond to front lobby. Duress alarm test. Secure, you respond to front lobby.
So that dynamic information that was communicated based upon where the computer was is populated by the computer's unique ID. The information that's going to Secure is going to communicate the location, and the information as it did then that's going over the radios is converting the alarm message from text to speech. So as you can imagine, we may be very selective where we need to use the keyboard alarm, or we may literally create an umbrella for every computer. We don't have to create a unique message for each alarm. Now, the other side of the software is that pop-up notification, that ability to override the desktop with an alert. We can override the screen, we can color code it, we can size the message based upon the issue, we can have procedures or policies pop up in it. We can even use real-time streaming protocol to have live video pop up for key personnel that need to see what's going on. So again, that power of being able to send an alert to a computer even when logged off is huge. So again, think about that alarm that's tied into Secure, that lockdown button, or any type of an event that we need to communicate to everybody, how powerful that would be to be able to get that information out to all those computers and all those other devices. So we already have the alarm in place, but now we're able to automate the communication. So there's that button you've already got tied into Secure.
Evacuate building. Go to your designated muster point. Evacuate call center. Go directly to your assigned muster point.
Be well. See you at 7 o'clock. In a moment, a college student helping older Americans and those at high risk.
Evacuate building. Go to your designated muster point.
So lots of different things were happening there, possibly on a very large scale. That event that might be from a physical lockdown, or in that case, evacuate call center button, was activated. All the computer screens were automatically notified with a predefined message that you've programmed into the system. The verbal message going to speakers, the PA system, possibly some IP speakers, possibly to radios and cell phones, is the appropriate messaging we want shared with staff. Even those beautiful big flat screen monitors throughout the facility could have been overridden with the appropriate messaging. So the power becomes that with a single activation within Secure or by adding buttons within Lynx, we're able to automate all those things we want to have happen next and have a log file showing that everything that should have happened did happen. Now, obviously, if I had to do a lockdown of 40 different buildings, having to put 40 different buttons in my dispatch might be obviously a bit too much. And one thing I learned the other day was that for a lot of colleges and other organizations, they may have different levels of lockdown that enable only certain personnel to be able to come in those buildings based upon particular issues. So maybe the students aren't allowed in, but faculty are. Or obviously at the highest levels, we still want the law enforcement to be able to come in, but we don't want anyone else to be able to come in. And you can obviously think of many, many different applications for this. But imagine in the dispatch now, we have folders on the Lynx desktop, which enable us to simply click an icon that creates the event in Secure. So these icons could be created in folders for different buildings, facility-wide, district-wide in case of a school district, for any number of different scenarios. While at the same time, we can also utilize these icons for unique situations that we might need to add information. And that information might be being added by an employee. You know, you think about a see something, say something icon or medical assistance needed. But those icons can also be utilized for emergency broadcast notification to groups or everybody. And again, I think about that large campus with 6 or 7 corporate buildings on it. Maybe the issue is going on in building A. What I need to communicate to building A, what has to happen within Secure in building A may be very different than what I want to have happen in buildings 2 through 6. So what we're able to do is not only communicate different messages, different events into Secure, but we can communicate different messages to different buildings, whether that's purely the color coding or the instructions of what we want people to do. So again, the power here is these icons really, in a lot of cases, can speed up the communication from a dispatch or a security director from his phone at home when he needs to initiate an alert. But it also gives the ability for staff to have a means to discreetly notify security or others if they need some form of assistance or they've seen or heard something. And that's what's going to happen in this next example. So we've got a missing patient. The nurse is able to report the missing patient, type in a description or other details, share it with the appropriate personnel. They're able to confirm it and then send it out to everybody.
Missing patient. 4-year-old boy, blonde hair, in blue shirt and red short.
So there are the icons. We're able to utilize that icon. Maybe we want to add an image at this point of the child if we have it, or this suspect we don't want to come into our building.
Below, be on lookout. 4-year-old boy, blonde hair, in blue shirt and red short.
So again, we've been able to override all those computers, not only with the initial message, but anything we've typed in becomes part of the message. We've color coded it possibly, and we were able to add that image. Think how impactful that image is going to be if we're looking for somebody versus just a description. We actually had a facility down in San Antonio that sent out an alert of a dementia patient who went missing. And when they interviewed the lady who found him 3 blocks away from the facility, she said, it's because I saw his eyes in the picture you sent out to me. And that's the value I see to this. You know, if it's somebody we're concerned about showing up at our facility or somebody who's missing or any other type of issue, adding that image sometimes makes all the difference. So obviously there are areas in facilities where we don't have a computer. And I think the important part is that there's the ability to add other forms of duress in areas where we don't have a Windows-based computer. So the whole variety of different inputs that can communicate to any of those outputs. But ultimately, they're all part of one single solution. They're all supervised, they can all be tested. They're all part of one single solution that can communicate into Secure or communicate to any of the Lynx outputs. So other than the keyboard, we have physical USB buttons that we manufacture. The circuit boards, these are all manufactured in our facility. So even though that's just a hub style button, the fact I can plug it into a computer where I need a physical button, I've solved that issue. Just plug it in, turn on the software, I've now got a physical button. Or for areas I might not have a computer, I can just plug in these PoE buttons that we manufacture in Richardson. You'll notice there's a little green LED on it, and that's to indicate it's connected and operational. We have wireless options, and again, all of the supervision and testing really brings these to another level compared with the average way people have been installing Duress up until now. And again, a variety of different wireless devices, lockdown buttons, any of these can be incorporated, but each individual alarm point can communicate different messaging into Secure, but also could communicate different levels of communication out to staff. So maybe certain alarms are only communicating to dispatch, whereas others need to notify staff in the area to take some action. And that can be done by the individual alarm points. So it gives us a lot of flexibility on when a button is pushed, what happens next. So again, when we think about mass notification, obviously a lot of different ways people think about it. You know, what I think is so key is that we have the ability to get layered communication out very, very effectively, very, very quickly across all the different platforms that may already be in place. And I think with Lynx, when we think about it, whether we're using an event from Secure, we're using the icons, or some other type of feed we might be getting from some other system or from the National Weather Service, the fact that we can automate all these things to happen very, very quickly across all the platforms they want to communicate is ultimately the key. And the other key is having reports showing that everything that should have happened did happen. Not we sent it out and we don't know what happened next. We want to know that the message was communicated over the radios in that building, or maybe I've got 145 schools and I need to send out a weather alert. I want a report showing that all 145 schools got notified over their PA system successfully. So again, all sorts of different inputs can work with Lynx, and any of those outputs can occur. So it really gives us a lot of flexibility. Maybe, again, it might just be a software solution at first and then expand into all these other capabilities over time. So here's another example. We've got an RSS feed.
Please follow procedures and take immediate shelter. Please follow procedures and take immediate shelter.
So again, you think about the power of that ability to get information out with just a click of an icon to all the different platforms that need to be notified. And one of the most recent things that I've found that I think is so important along this front is the ability to tie into these other systems that are in place. All of this digital signage we see in courthouses and all this digital signage we see in airports that might be telling us what gate to go to or what courtroom to go to. All that beautiful signage we have in these corporate buildings informing us about different products or solutions. Using the HTTP post or GET or our REST JSON API, we can integrate into these systems that are already in place. So suddenly now, when that severe weather alert occurs, not only are we communicating to the employees, but maybe we're communicating to visitors to the building too. So ultimately, as we look at the Lynx system and Secure, there's so much power to the two systems together because it is a true SDK integration. So any information from Secure can dynamically be communicated through Lynx, and any alarm from Lynx can, when necessary, be communicated into Secure. But we can also selectively communicate information to other devices as part of that alarm from Secure or from Lynx. And again, here's just some examples of the simplicity of an event from Lynx or an event from Secure. The access speakers are an interesting one because, again, we start thinking about environments where something might be happening, where we need to get information out to individual people or to all people. So let's say the system has detected a group of people congregating somewhere they shouldn't be. And from the dispatch, they can simply type in a message and press send. And now it's going out over the speaker outside the library.
The 10 students gathered together outside the library need to disband. That includes you, Tim Lee.
So I'm not sure what I was doing at the library, but ultimately this gives us the ability from dispatch to communicate information to people that might be on our campus or might be on the other side of the country, telling somebody to take some action simply by typing in a message. So instead of just using it as a deterrent, now I can type in, the man in the black shirt needs to get away from the maintenance building. And I guarantee you that's going to be even more impactful than a generic message. So again, lots and lots of different hardware capabilities within the Lynx system. We have I/O boards. And what happens often is somebody will say, look, I've got different existing legacy Duress alarms. Maybe they're at end of life, maybe they're Duress alarms that really don't communicate enough information. You can simply take our input boxes and tie into any of those existing alarm points. We can supervise them, we can put them in test modes, we can really do a huge amount with all that existing wiring and infrastructure. As long as the wiring is good, now we can update those old systems. And you may even have a few clients that don't use Secure currently, but may be looking to use it in the future. You can always put a Lynx system in now and add Secure to Lynx later. It's not something that you cannot offer Lynx without Secure. Lynx can be also offered to your clients as a standalone solution. So lots and lots of environments we're in, as you can imagine, because it's so scalable. We're even now in faith-based communities and small applications, but ultimately there's no limit to where Lynx is being deployed. We're doing a lot of work in the federal government, again, because we're manufactured here in America and because of our security levels. So I'd like to open it up to some questions, but first, Jim Stankovich, if you had anything to add.
Yeah, Tim, can you just, I saw you kind of skipped over the sound intelligence piece there. Could you kind of explain that? Because I think it's important.
Oh, great point, Jim. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, in fact, last year I was down at a trade show with Louis Colon and Jim. And when we were at the trade show, there was a real interest in the fact that you can utilize software that utilizes the microphone in a camera. So we're not listening into conversations, but we're using software that can detect sound profiles such as aggression or anger, or God forbid, even a gunshot. So think how powerful that would be. It comes into Lynx as an event and can therefore go into Secure. We can see what's going on, and based upon what's going on, now we utilize Lynx as a communication tool. So even though currently I don't think there is an integration with Sound Intelligence and Secure 9000, the fact that Lynx integrates with it means that it could create the event in Secure. And they are a very conservative company, and that's what I like about them. They're not out there making false promises. They accept the fact that you might get some false positives, and that's why they always recommend the messaging come back to dispatch first before communicating it out to everybody. Thanks for that, Jim.
Okay, well, we do have quite a bit of questions here, so I'm going to jump right in. Can the Lynx system interface with a campus voice over IP system to broadcast a PA announcement over the phone speaker?
That's a great question. Yes, so we have a SHIP integration that ultimately enables us to tie directly into their Cisco IP phone or other phone systems that utilize SIP protocol? So that's a great question. And again, I think that nails it, which is I already have all this technology in place, and now based upon specific issues, I want to add that as one more layer of communication. Great point.
Okay, great. What about in a conference room where there's no computer? How can we use Lynx to provide a stealthy panic button in those situations so staff could activate the panic without making an aggressive action to press a wall button?
Great question. So there's a few different ways we're doing that. Sometimes they'll be using the wireless, because obviously running wire in a conference room and having to rip up the carpet isn't very feasible. So they'll often put a wireless button underneath the desk, or strategically placed in a conference room underneath the desk. And as long as the personnel that obviously need access to initiate the alert are sitting in the appropriate location, now we've got that Duress button in that location where it's necessary. And as I mentioned earlier, let's say I've got 30 or 40 wireless buttons in that administration area where I've got my conference room and maybe a sensitive discussion is going on about HR or otherwise. Well, each individual button has a unique channel. Therefore, we're able to be very specific of where in the conference room or which conference room it's been activated.
That's great. Yeah, the way that you can pinpoint that down that way. That's great. How are false alarms avoided or prevented?
That's a great question. And with the keyboard-based alarm, it's very important to realize that with the keyboard function, whether it's the F9, F11, or F1, F12, it's a very intentional push of only those two keys. So ultimately, if I took my afternoon nap and put my arms down on the keyboard, as may happen in certain environments, that wouldn't trigger an alarm, simply because I'm pushing keys other than the two assigned keys. And that's why F9, F11 is nice, because F10 in between is going to reduce that. The usual reason we'll get false alarms is lack of training. And let's face it, whether we're putting a physical Duress button out there or a keyboard-based Duress button out there, the importance is making sure staff know why they have it, when to use it, and the importance of taking it seriously. No different than many other types of alarms that get deployed. If people were to go to a fire alarm and push it to see what happens, that obviously is not a good thing. And it's the same with this, to tell employees that they are only to push it based upon these issues, not to push it to see what happens next and other types of things. So training is really the key, but also that testing, I think, is so key, because ultimately by taking that test on a monthly basis, it really reassures them in the first place that they know how to use it, and it keeps reminding them that they have it, so that there isn't that worry that they're going to hit the keys just accidentally. It will indicate to them, however, that they have sent the alarm. A little green banner pops up in the corner. So the nice part there is there is an awareness by the employee that they have sent the alarm. So obviously, if it were done accidentally, then they would have the means to reach out to security and let them know.
But I'm assuming it's done discreetly, so the computer wouldn't send an alarm or anything if the person's trying to send that alarm, it won't beep so that the person would be able to tell, right?
Exactly that. So what happens is a small little green banner pops up on the screen indicating that the alarm has been successfully sent for a small period of time. However, that's not required. So we don't have to have that little banner pop up. But when we move to Windows 10, the fact that the icons in the tool tray were designed to change color when the alarm was sent, they're not always as visible in Windows 10. So we added that feature to the system, but it's not a requirement, but it certainly is nice for people to know they've successfully sent the message.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any compatibility with Mac OS or plans to work with them?
That's a great question. So as a company, we have a very tight relationship with Windows. Probably when we had installed about 250,000 of these keyboard alarms, people were reaching out to Microsoft, and Microsoft ended up reaching out to us. And the great thing about Microsoft is we now have such a tight relationship with Microsoft, because obviously we don't want anything that looks like malware on your Windows computer. So the relationship with Microsoft has been very, very tight. Not so much with Apple. However, with Apple computers, we can use both the icons and the pop-up notification. We cannot use the keyboard alarm or the USB buttons. And it would require the computers to be logged on to activate or receive notifications with a Mac.
Okay. Can you please define the ingress to networks? What do you mean by no ingress to the client network?
That's excellent. I'm going to pass that over to Kevin Petty, who's on the line with us for that very reason.
So when we develop the hosted system, there's always a challenge with wanting to be able to make IT happy, which is always, you want IT to be pleased with your product. And when we tell them that our product only makes outbound requests to the hosted model, that leaves all security issues. On top of that, we're running a TLS encryption protocol that is that's very high. So, from an IT perspective, if if we were reaching into their network, they would be not happy about that. But since the device only goes outbound, then they're going to be we're kind of predicting the hosted is really going to take the market over.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Okay. How and when is the test scheduled?
That's a great question because, in a lot of environments, they literally do it on a monthly basis because they're required to do so. However, it can be done on a schedule that the organization decides. So it does not have to be done on a monthly basis, but a lot of organizations do it on a monthly basis. However, they'll set the window possibly for a week. So what will happen is a window will pop up on a computer saying, please test your alarm. If I couldn't take the test right away, I could have it tell me to take the test later. But imagine people who may not be at work right now, they're on medical leave or otherwise. Obviously, we want to have that window as broad as possible, possibly, like I said, a week, so that we capture as many people and make sure we've got 100% alarms tested. So it can be done on a manual basis, or it can also be on a schedule basis.
Okay. Is there any special software the installing technician needs on their laptop when testing the panic buttons?
Well, there's a few elements to that question. With the wireless, for instance, we have a receiver that enables you to remote into the receiver and see the signal strength of all the buttons and do a lot of the programming there. As far as the PoE buttons and the USB buttons and the input boxes, obviously from the laptop, you would need to have access to the actual management portion of the Lynx system that's either an on-premises solution or you'd have to have access to the software as a service solution.
Well, and Tim, let me help you out here a little bit. With the different products, they're going to either be online through the and supervised through the local servers or through the hosted service. So again, I think the monitoring is all still built in.
Yeah, so nothing needed on the integrators' computers per se. They'd need access to the system.
That's it.
Okay, there was a couple of follow-up questions, Kevin, to the ingress. So for the ingress, essentially it's a one-way network connection.
Yeah,
so
Tim, can you pull that down to that slide?
he just needs clarification on how it's enabling the alarm functioning at the clients.
Yeah, so the client reaches out to the AWS service using, again, the TLS encryption. Here we go. Nope, getting close. Getting close. One more. Nope, almost there. But he's got a good diagram. Okay, Lynx Duress application, and it's going to be right the one up at the beginning. Here we go. Here we go, right here. So, you know, any of our devices, whether it's the Lynx client software, I'm looking at the left side of the screen right now, and it can be the Lynx client software on Apple's or Windows machines, or any of our Lynx hardware, which we have a whole variety of hardware from input boxes to wireless to all types of hardware devices. All of those, when they reach out to the AWS server, the critical issue is that there's no we didn't never reach in to their network. All connections and sockets are opened from the devices which within the customer's network, and then that's reached out to the AWS model. And I mean, here's the ports that's used listed over here on the right hand side of the diagram. But once that socket's initiated from the customer's network, rather than us being able to reach in, adds a much higher level of security for the product.
Okay, great. The next question is, how does man down work? And how can you identify where the person is located?
Great question. So with the man down button, we're able to utilize part of what we developed into our wireless receiver that enables us, by putting a grid of repeaters over, for instance, the boiler plant or some other location where there is a high risk environment, and we're able to utilize the information that is coming via all the repeaters that accurately determines within 5 to 8 feet of where that button has been pushed. So the man down buttons are often being used in lone worker environments, or environments obviously where there's a concern that the person may faint or otherwise, and then that would notify after 30 seconds if the person was down. But it would require repeaters to be like a grid over the area we wish to utilize it, just as it would with our wireless buttons that are used in high risk departments too. We need to put the repeaters in there to accurately determine where the button has been pushed.
Or Tim, the man down will also go off if someone say they fainted and hit the ground with the man down button being at a certain angle.
Yeah, that's correct. After 30 seconds of it not being vertical, it'll send out a notification that there's a man down versus somebody pushing the button to activate the alarm. So you're absolutely correct. Does it both ways.
And it also has a panic button built into it. So if the person is under duress, so it's a dual channel transmitter. It's the man down and it's the duress. Some of our applications have been able to been put in more cost effectively because they haven't done, as Tim was talking about, the locating system. Like for instance, we had one that was in a boiler plant, and it just said, come to the boiler plant, because either the guys fell down or hit the panic button, get over to the boiler plant. And they didn't need to locate any more than that because he was kind of a lone worker. So again, it depends on the situations. We can do the locating on them also. It's just a little higher cost.
Okay, great. We are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to just take one last question. If any more come in, I will connect to those people with both you and Tim. Okay, Kevin?
Perfect, perfect.
The last question here is, can there be an app on an employee's phones that can activate a duress?
Great question. I'll answer that. Currently, the app is coming out for the hosted solution in the next few months, and then for the on-premises solution at the end of the year, early 2021. We don't recommend using the app for what we'll consider a duress alarm because we cannot accurately determine where the person is, especially in a multi-story building. So the app is going to be primarily used for applications where we want to be able to initiate, for instance, a lockdown of a school that the principal may have access to, not necessarily knowing where the principal is in the school under duress. So we do like to differentiate the two. The idea that we've got a mobile device and we don't know exactly where they are obviously could be very, very problematic when we're trying to